Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for being here today. First of all, I want to let you know that this webinar is recorded, and so I'll be sharing the recording with everyone afterwards. And then second of all, there's a chat section here in the webinar where you can actually ask your questions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have around use cases or capabilities. And then, I'll answer them at the end of my presentation and demo. And with that, we'll get started. Today's webinar is on the introduction to Matrix. My name is Hai Nguyen. I'm co-founder of Affluence, a company behind Matrix. So I've talked to thousands of customers over the years, seen every single use cases that you can imagine. So my goal for you today is pretty much help you understand the basics of Matrix, help you become more effective and efficient at prioritizing tasks, projects, and emails, help you envision what your work and life success may look like with Matrix, and then using Matrix to achieve your 2024 goals. There's three reasons customer comes to Matrix. The first is to help be better at keeping track on the status of work across many areas of responsibilities. So what that means is you're working on so many different projects. You have many hats at any point in time. How do you know how things are going? How do you know how things are going with your coworkers or your colleagues, your managers, your direct reports? And then second of all, to create alignment across team members so everyone knows what's important. And then thirdly, to take back control of emails and meetings. If you're like me, you get a lot of emails every single day. And because of that, you're constantly distracted by all these inquiries that's coming in. And guess what? The last email in is the first email that you respond to, right? And so we're all subjected to that. Now, I understand that many of you here today and many of you listening to the webinar recording afterwards are probably new to Matrix, but I'm pretty certain that I can say that a lot of us face these similar challenges in terms of prioritizing and in terms of understanding what we need to work on. And the second part is that a lot of people, a lot of our customers have tried so many different software and have always struggled with bringing it all together and be able to have one central place to prioritize their task. And so what Matrix is designed to do is it to be a comprehensive email priority and project management software. The reason it's that we try to be all of those in one central place is because we can't look at how we prioritize our tasks without looking at the emails that are coming in, without looking at the tasks that we have to work on at any point in time, and without looking at the projects and initiative that's on our plate. At the end of the day, Matrix helps the individuals, the teams, and the organization. At the individual level, it helps you prioritize your most important tasks in email. This applies to every single one of us. So even if you don't use Matrix in a team environment, it will help you understand your own work and keep you sane, honestly. At the team level, it helps you be aligned on key projects. So one of the more than a decade ago, Matrix started as a software solution for individuals. And what we discovered was that we help individuals understand their priorities. And so they start realizing, wait a minute, I know what my priorities are. How can I communicate this to others? And so that's how the team aspect of Matrix came about. And so now if you know what your priorities are and your coworkers know what their priorities are, when you come together, you can actually see you can sort of imagine sort of a Venn diagram to see how these two sets of priorities actually merge together, where you align, where you not align. And then finally, at the organization level, what Matrix does is creates a single source of truth to help everyone become more effective and more efficient. So now that you are aligned with your coworkers, you can imagine what about how priorities are across departments, across teams, and across time, right? So more so than ever before, we and employees have turnover, we go on leave and so forth. And so if we don't use something like Matrix, one of the challenges I've seen over and over again is that all the priorities that's sort of in your brain and then in your coworker's brain, well, when they leave, it leaves with them. So by using something like Matrix, you actually have that understanding of how priorities have evolved over time. And then if someone new comes in and takes over a task, they know exactly what decisions led to that point. So that's what you can think of Matrix as a software to help you at every stage of your your work. And so I do want to emphasize, from my perspective, the individual is the most important, right? Because if we can't help you, then what's the point? And so if you use Protomatrix, this is your first time ever looking at Protomatrix, make sure that it works for you to help you understand what you need to work on. What makes Protomatrix better than a lot of other solutions out there is that it's the only Microsoft 365 security certified solution for Teams, Outlook, and web application, all three of those. We're leveraging AI more and more to help both teams and individual achieve their goals. We actually have some really exciting work, including integrations with Microsoft Copilot and other AI solutions. So if you're interested and if your organization supports some of those other initiatives, reach out to us and we can tell you more about that. And then thirdly, we provide what I call people-centric collaboration. In addition to helping you prioritize your task and your project and all that, people-centric collaboration means it helps you understand what it is that you need to work on for somebody. Like if you are talking to your manager, you can pull up Protomatrix and understand exactly what are all the tasks that you're responsible for. Or if you have direct reports, you can see directly everything that they're working on and get the real-time status of those tasks. Protomatrix is also available as a standard SaaS solution, which is what I'll be showing you, but also we have a HIPAA compliant solution, an Azure government cloud solution, as well as managed private Azure deployments. The neat thing about this is it works deeply within the Microsoft ecosystem, regardless of which of those solutions you choose. What makes Protomatrix particularly effective is it helps you determine what you need to work on now, what are the things you should work on later, and what are the things you should delegate. If anything, imagine how many things you have to do at any point in time. How do you decide what to work on? And then not only that, when you talk to others, how do you communicate to them what it is that you need to work on at this moment, and then what is it that you need to plan on for later? And so my understanding and my take on all of this is that priorities are constantly shifting. Now, let me tell you the truth. If you don't have many tasks, if your priorities never change, Protomatrix won't be that helpful, honestly. But if your priorities are constantly shifting and every single day you might get an email from a client, or your manager is assigning you something new, or you realize that all these different projects are competing for your time and you don't have enough resources to get them, to tackle them, that's when Protomatrix is valuable, because it offers the one place where everyone can go to know what needs to be done. And so I always think that if you have 1,000 things to do, but the resources to tackle only a portion of that, that's when prioritization is most critical. Let's talk about the concept behind Protomatrix. So there's a famous quote attributed to former President Eisenhower: "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." What I really like about this quote is that it helps us understand the context of everything that we have to do. Instead of thinking about your to-do list, what you want to think about is your to-do matrix. And that's what Protomatrix is all about. Instead of working on something that's, again, if you have 10 things to do you start at the top of the list or the bottom of the list, right? So instead of looking from that perspective, you look at the task as with the dimensions of importance and urgency. What tasks are important and urgent? What tasks are important but not urgent? And so the important and urgent things are in quadrant 1, the do now. The important but not urgent are the things you should plan for. The not important but urgent are the things that you could delegate to others, and then you should never even write down the things that are not important and not urgent, because that's just a waste of time. So the way it works with Protomatrix is, instead of having a to-do list, you have to put everything within the 4-quadrant framework. It is hard, by the way. It is not easy. This is the hardest part about using Protomatrix, and this is the hardest part about prioritizing, because what we do is we force you to prioritize from the beginning. And so a lot of us sort of, go about our day, having a list of things we want to do, but never actually spending time deciding, hey, am I working on the right things? And is that the right thing compared to the entire objective within my team, within my organization, right? And so from my perspective, what I want to do is I want to identify what are the things that are actually valuable, and then how it fits in within the bigger picture. And so I would say that if you struggle with if you struggle with prioritization, even doing this on a piece of paper, as in, even if you prioritize all the work you have to do on a piece of paper and never use the Protomatrix software, I think you'll walk away with value. So the 4-quadrant Eisenhower Matrix creates alignment within your team because it forces you to prioritize from the start, right? You don't wait until, a month, a year later, and then deciding whether or not, the things you're working on is valuable or not. I would argue that the worst use of our time is to do an excellent job on something that doesn't matter. And so you can probably think for a half second around all the things that you've seen you do or your organization do or others do where they spend so much time and effort executing perfectly and then no one looks at it. I've heard horror stories of entire reports, initiatives where people spend so much time building and not a single other person looked at it. And so just think about all that effort lost because that particular project is not high priority within the larger organization. So the success from using Protomatrix isn't necessarily about finding out what everyone agrees on. That's easy. It's about discovering the disagreement on what should be a priority when it isn't. And so I hope you take this as a takeaway from today's webinar. And again, if nothing else, apply this to your own daily practice and you'll find a lot of value. But if you walk around the office and you each have your own Protomatrix and you just start comparing notes, you're going to find that you'll either achieve alignment real quick or you're going to discover so many disagreements that you weren't aware of. I do want to mention that the webinars are recorded, and so we post all of them onto affluence.com/webinars as well. And then I also have a couple of other webinars around more specific topics, including email management as well as using templates in Protomatrix. I won't be able to go into all the details around the software today, but the whole goal here is to give you a really high-level understanding on what are the things you can use within Protomatrix that gives you the most value. Also, there's additional types of webinars that's more tailored toward people who are completely new to the software, as well as to people who are very advanced with the software. So definitely check those out as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the product, along with providing you some suggestions here. All right. As mentioned, there is the chat section inside the webinar. So if you have any questions, please send them there and I'll take a look at them. Okay, here I have Protomatrix open. As you can see, front and center is the 4-quadrant. And by the way, this again is something that is so important in Protomatrix. You've probably seen a lot of different, task and project management software where, you have a list and you can start writing things down, or you have a board where you put things down on the board and you can drag and drop them. Protomatrix is no different from that. The difference for us is focusing on the 4 quadrants as the most important part of understanding how to prioritize your task. And so on my left-hand side here, I have my list of projects. You can think of projects as anything from my personal priority list or my team priority list or various initiatives I'm working on, or maybe you're working with multiple clients or customer and you might have a project for each of your client and customer. So you have projects that might be lasting for years. You might have a project that lasts only a month. Or you might have something that's recurring. So those are the different types of projects. So you don't have to think about projects as being an actual project in the traditional project management sense. Within the project, you have the 4 quadrants: do now, do later, delegate, inbox. So let's just say I start my day, I look at my Protomatrix and I decide, okay, what are the things I need to work on today? As an example, right now, I want to follow up with webinar participants, okay? So that's a simple task that I have to do after this webinar, which is what I will do. And then afterwards, I'm going to say due tomorrow at 2 p.m., okay? And when I add a task like that, what it does is it creates a task in Protomatrix, and our system automatically understands the due date and set that due date for you. So now on March 1st, I have a task due at 2 p.m. to follow with webinar participants. So now the right-hand side is what's called the item details, which is where you can add additional information around the task itself. Is it required to modify all this? No, but the item details let you put in information to help remind you or assign to others, etc., to actually make the task more complete. So here's a couple things that I want you to take away. One, there's something called starring a task. So let's just say something's very important. You want to star it. The way it works with starring is that when you star a task, it actually pops to the top of your quadrants, right? And so when you have one task, it doesn't really matter. But when you have 30, then you want to say within each quadrant, what are the things I'm working on at this moment in time? So I like to always star my active task, what I'm focusing on at this moment. And then below that, you have icons, which you can go and choose sort of an icon that visualizes what the task is. I've seen customers use the colors to a lot of great success just because, red, yellow, and green just makes it very visual for you to see whether or not things are going well or not. And then below that, you have ownership. Let's just say you need to assign this task to another person. And then you have the due dates, which is what I set when I was creating the task in the first place. But then next to it is reminders. Now, due dates and reminders are very different. And this is probably the most valuable feature inside Product Matrix. And I really want to emphasize that you should be using this. So let's just say if you're working on taxes and it's due April 15th, right? So you set the due date April 15th. April 15th comes about, and then you realize, wait a minute, I don't have anything. So how can I actually get this done today? So what you want to do is you want to remind yourself, like maybe a week prior, or on a recurring basis. So then it's actually top of mind and you can start preparing for it. So you can think about anything that you have to do. You have a due date, and then you can say, you can set these reminders that actually comes back and notifies you, hey, I should start working on this. Okay. So the way it works in Product Matrix is I can actually just type down here, remind me daily. So what I've just done is I've set a due date. And then if I don't finish the task on a daily basis, the system will send me a reminder to ensure that I actually get it done. It is so valuable to use these two capabilities. For me, I have a lot of tasks open. So I have around 300 projects. I have tens of thousands of action items that I follow across our company. If I were to actually have to open every project to look at what task I have to work on, it would be virtually impossible. So what I do is for my most important task, I do exactly what I've just shown you here. I set due dates, I set reminders, that's recurring, and I set star. And guess what? I won't always get to those tasks every single day, but when I forget them, the next day, I'll get a notification again. It's like, hey, I should work on that. So this is how you trick your brain. What happens is that we are all for lack of better words, subjected to the shiny things. And what I mean by that is that the last email in is the email that we're going to respond to first, right? That's just the way it is with our brain. So urgent things are always pulling on us. And so by using Product Matrix and by using these reminder system, what it does is it tricks your brain into seeing the most important things over and over again. So if you've used any task management software, or if you have, flagged your emails or things like that, you'll notice that, if it's within a day or two of you flagging that emails, you'll be able to get back to it. But if it's been like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 months or 3 months, you'll find that you completely forgot about it. So that's why you have to use reminders. It is very, very crucial for anything that's, more than a few days away. And what's nice about that too is it actually gets it out of your brain. So it frees up your brain to focus on other things and on the task at hand. Okay, so that's how it works in the item details. As you look down more, there's a chat section, which is where you saw how I type a message there, but it's also where I can communicate with my team members. So what that means, you can think of like an email thread or a conversation. For every single task, you can actually have a whole history of everything you talked about. And again, it's valuable somewhat at this moment in time when you're first using Product Matrix, but then in a year or two, you might want to look back at some of these tasks and understand all the decisions made and all the conversation within the context of this task, right? And so every item has a conversation associated with it. So instead of you having all these meetings where you've talked about 1,000 different things and then later on you don't remember all the decisions made, Product Matrix makes it one central place where you can track all of that. The notes section is where you can add subtasks and bullets. And then the resources section is where you can have documents, files, emails, all attached in one central place that's relevant to this particular item. Now, one thing that's really valuable about the way Product Matrix integrates with the Microsoft ecosystem is that in the resources section, you can actually attach emails from your Outlook. You can also attach links to SharePoint. You can also attach other Party Matrix tasks and tie them together to build dependencies. So everything in Party Matrix has a link that you can use as part of the resources. So that makes it really useful to actually look at the bigger picture and see how all these things tie together. Okay, so as you can see, I'm not showing you every capabilities in terms of the item details, but again, I do want to emphasize that every task that you create and every important task that you create in Party Matrix, you should have a due date, you should have a reminder, and you should star them if they're the active ones. Okay, so here again, let's go back to the big picture. So we zoom back out, we've talked about the item, we talk about the matrix. Now let's look at our list of projects. As you can see in my demo account here, I have a few dozen projects. I can actually go to another project, for example, my team priorities, or I can go to something like goals for this particular quarter, or I can go to a project that I created for goals for 2024. Now, when I open this project, one thing you'll notice right away is that the colors of the quadrants are different. And then not only that, the quadrant names are different. Party Matrix gives you a lot of options to customize. So I talk about the Eisenhower Matrix, as the core of our software, but in reality, everyone works in different ways. And so as you use Party Matrix more, you can actually build out all sorts of customization that is useful for you as an individual, but also useful for your team. So here, for example, I have the project goals of 2024. I changed the quadrant name to my long-term goals, short-term goals, things I will not do, and ideas. So if you have actually some goals for this year, I recommend that you go ahead and create a Party Matrix project, and then from there, customize it. And here's how you customize it. When you select a project for the first time, on the right-hand side is what's called the project details. And so in the project details, I can say the project name. I can click on this to change it. I can star the project. And just like items, when I start a project, it pops at the top of my list here. And then below that, I have members. So these are the people inside the project. So I can invite additional team members to my project. And so maybe it's one project and it's for myself. My team project might have 2 or 3 people in it, or a project I work with another colleague might have additional people or different people in it. And so Party Matrix gives you the ability to control who gets to see what project. And then down here, you can actually click on each of these quadrants and actually change the names, and then click on the color here to change the color of the quadrants. I like the colors to signify different categories of projects. So for example, if you were managing client projects, you might have the client projects be one color. And then if you have internal project from marketing or engineering, they may have different colors. So then when you look at your Party Matrix, it's very visual for you to see what it is that requires your attention. So to create a new project in Party Matrix is very straightforward. You click on this icon up here, choose create project, and now you have several options. The first is you can always create a blank project. Very straightforward. You just type in the project name, choose a color theme, click add project, right? And if you choose basic Party Matrix, that's the Eisenhower Matrix that we talked about, the do now, do later, delegate, and postpone. But if you click on template, you actually have a couple of other choices. And so anything that's sort of like a 2x2 matrix can be used inside the Party Matrix software system. Also, what I can do instead when I create a new project is I can choose from what's called public templates. So if you go to public templates, what we've done is we've created several types of matrices, and we put it here for you to choose from. In fact, we have several hundred types of templates, everything that you can imagine in terms of quadrant names. And you can think of all these different dimensions of like importance and urgency, but also efforts versus impact. Or anything that's you've seen in business schools or business strategy, etc. So Party Matrix lets you use those quadrants very easily. And then you also have the option to create from AI, which is where you can put in a goal. So let's just say you want to get promoted this year, right? You could say, my goal is get promoted to senior project manager. You type that here, you click forward, and Party Matrix will build out a series of tasks for you to achieve your goal. And then lastly, you can actually choose from your own templates. One of the most powerful capabilities in Party Matrix is the ability to turn any Party Matrix into a recurring template that you can use at any point in time. Let me give you an example. Let's just say you use Party Matrix for the first time, and you help onboard employees. Well, you can go create a blank project in Matrix, create all the tasks you have around employee onboarding, such as, hey, these are the 3 things you have to do this week. These are the 4 things you have to do this month. These are the documents and training materials you should read, and it's due at different dates. Then you save it as a template in Matrix. And now, whenever you have a new employee, you just go to create from your template, choose that, and then you can say the start date, and Matrix will populate all of that for you. It is very useful if you have recurring tasks, and it's useful for recurring initiatives, or if you were, let's just say you work in the tax industry and you have to have a series of tasks for your clients every single year. You just choose a Matrix project, set the start date as January 1st, and then everything will be created for you and all the due dates will update for you accordingly. So that's how you can create projects inside Matrix. So now let me show you a couple of other ways in which you can use Matrix and look at the data in a different way. So I'm going to choose another project here. So again, as you can see, this one uses effort and impact. The matrix is the front and center, but you can actually look at all your tasks with other views. So for example, you can switch over to the list view, right? Some of you are more familiar with the list view, and some people prefer the list view. And what's really interesting is that when you work with somebody else using Matrix, you can be in the matrix view, somebody else can be in the list view, somebody else can be in the calendar view, somebody else can be in the Gantt chart view, and all your data still sync together. And so what's neat about that is that people can look at the data in their own ways, and Matrix is just a way to visualize that information. So every project has each of these various views. And then the last view here is actually the report system, where you can actually see what are the things people work on, what are the things where you've been spending your time on every single project. So that's how you can actually look at the reports on a per project basis. The other thing that I want to talk about is the people-centric aspect of Matrix. As mentioned earlier, if you have one project, right, it's easy to know what everyone's working on. But what if you have 5 or 10 projects and you have a meeting with your manager and you're trying to find out what are all the things you worked on? Instead of having to go through every single project, what Matrix does is it gives you what's called the one-on-one view. So I go to here, I choose the one-on-one, and then what I can do is I can select a person. And from this one-on-one view, when I select the person, I see everything I have in common with that person. It is so useful because when let's just say I'm meeting a direct report, I can pull up this view, see everything that person's working on. I can see what are the things that are overdue, what are the things that are modified. I can sort by each of these. And then when I'm come up with new tasks that I need to assign to the person, I can click add shared task, create the task here, and it automatically assigns it to my colleague and add me as a follower. So when there's an update to that task, I get notified and I can choose what project it goes in. So if you have a lot of one-on-one meetings or you work in a cross-functional team, this is a very useful capability. So this is what I call people-centric. And instead of looking at it from a project perspective, you can go through this list and change the people that you work with and just see directly what it is that they're working on. And if you want to know and ensure that people are not falling behind on their tasks, this is a fantastic place to look at it as well. Now, I want to shift gear a little bit and talk about email management. That's probably one of the number one reason why customer comes to Matrix. So Matrix is really deeply integrated into the Microsoft Teams ecosystem. So for example, let's just say here, I get an email. Let's say I get an email. And from this email, I need to do a certain task for a customer. Right, I could respond to the email right away. And that's usually not a problem. But sometimes I might have to assign the email to another person, or I might have to set a due date to this email because I'm not ready to respond to it at this moment. So what I can do is I can open Matrix here. So this is the apps within Outlook itself. If you don't have Matrix for Outlook yet, click on Add Apps and search for Matrix. But here I have it installed, and it's called Matrix Turn Email into Task. I click on this option and I have the option to prioritize email. So if an email comes in, instead of actually just flagging the email, I open the Matrix for Outlook here. And what I can do is I can turn this email into a task. I can choose what project it goes in. I can assign it to another person. I can set a due date, and then I click capture email. What it does is it converts that email into a task. And as you can see, the moment I do that, this becomes an item detail. So it looks just like inside my web application. And then what this allows me to do is when I have to answer that email, I actually can, when the due date is there, I can actually go and open that email directly from inside my Matrix. So the other thing you can also do with Outlook is actually attach emails to existing tasks, and you can even access the entire Matrix application within Outlook itself. So if you go to down here to more apps, you can again search for Matrix, and you can actually install Matrix inside Outlook. So you don't even have to go to our web application. You can access the entire web app directly here. All you have to do is pin it, so then it's there just like another Microsoft application. Similarly, if you go into Microsoft Teams, you can search for Matrix and then install Matrix here on the left-hand side, pin it, and now you can access all of Matrix inside Teams. We also have really deep integrations within everything inside Teams, especially relating to conversations and all that. So I can go to a conversation here with a coworker, open the one-on-one view, and see that same one-on-one view that I mentioned earlier directly here inside Teams with every single one of my coworker. The way I would add it is just click on this plus icon, choose Matrix, and add the one-on-one view. Additionally, we integrate with Microsoft Teams to allow you to convert any conversation into a task. So for example, let's say a coworker sends you a message, you can actually just hover over this and choose to create Matrix action item directly from any Teams conversation. As you can see, Matrix allows you to actually send what's called action cards as well. So that's pretty useful if, let's just say you assign someone a task and then you see that they didn't respond to it. Matrix allows you to send these tasks through Microsoft Teams and then letting your coworker open it, respond to it as needed. So we have additional integrations with everything else in the Microsoft ecosystem, including Planner. You can pull in Planner tasks, you can pull in to-do tasks. We actually also integrations with Microsoft Copilot, and then integrations with Microsoft Power Apps and Workflow. So the reason I want to bring that up is that if you are using Matrix, and then as you expand the usage of Matrix across your organization, Matrix is ready to grow with you in terms of how you work within the Microsoft ecosystem. Again, I do want to emphasize that none of that is required. The most important thing about using Matrix is simply to create a few projects. Again, I'll show you, go back to open Matrix here. My personal take is you should create a project that's called My Personal Priorities. You should create a project called My Team Priorities. You should create a project for goals, and then you should create a project for some key initiative that you're working on. And if you do that, and when you create tasks, you simply set the due dates and reminders, I think you're going to find that Matrix is very, very effective at helping you just understand what it is that you're working on. And then my second advice is that when you have a meeting, a team meeting, simply project Matrix onto the big screen. What happens is that every single one of us, when we are working on something, we have those priorities, we have those thoughts inside our brain, but it's not so easy for others to recognize that. And then similarly, imagine if you needed to know what your coworkers consider to be their priorities, right? You don't want to be sitting in a meeting room just to talk about that. So by having everyone create their own matrix, you can actually go in and take a look at everyone's party matrix at any point in time and see those priorities asynchronously. You don't have to have a meeting to know. Instead, you look here and see, okay, I see that, so-and-so person has these as their priorities, and this is where there's a misalignment. When you have a meeting, then you can discuss those misalignments. Okay, so to wrap things up, I want, if you haven't signed up for Matrix already, sign up for Matrix. If you use Microsoft Teams, add Matrix in Teams. If you use Outlook, add Matrix in Outlook. Otherwise, you can always just go to Prioritization.com to access the web app. We have desktop apps so you can actually install on your Windows and Mac machines. So that allows you to have Matrix everywhere. The other thing about Matrix is that we actually have really deep integrations with email forwarding as well. So I show you how you actually can convert an email into a task in Outlook, but you also have what's called a secret inbox address, where if you're on the road, right, and you're on your mobile device and you get an email and you need to prioritize it, you can forward it into Pretty Matrix and actually turn that into a task. I want to go back to my presentation real quick. Okay, so what success with Party Matrix should look like? The first and most important is that you have one central place to track all your priorities. Again, if you can imagine how you have all your priorities written down in the project, your managers have their priorities written down in the project, your coworkers have their priorities written down in the project. And so whenever you need to understand what it is you need to work on, you just open up Party Matrix and look at those projects. That's when you know you've used Party Matrix correctly. Second, everyone on the team understand and are aligned on key tasks. If you don't find any discrepancy, that's great. But the value in Party Matrix is finding the discrepancy, the things where you guys disagree on, because again, you don't want to be spending time working on the wrong things, right? And so the earlier you surface that, the better. If you have a lot of repetitive procedures, make sure you templatize them. So what that means is that you can create those tasks one time, convert that into a project, and then every time you have that series of tasks again, launch it from your project. There's a webinar dedicated precisely to template management. And then lastly, important emails are prioritized. And so I find that to be one of the most powerful feature within Party Matrix, just because, we just, all of us, no matter what, get so many emails every single day, and we forget our emails all the time. And so when you create that email and you create that due dates, attach a due date to that email, and you assign to people, you can actually have a meaningful conversation around that, and then make sure that you never actually drop those emails. Okay, with that, I conclude my presentation here. If there's any questions whatsoever, I'd be happy to address them. If not, you can also send me a message at hi@affluence.com, and I'd be happy to respond to them. Thank you. Okay, let me see if there's any chats. Okay, so someone asked if Party Matrix would be useful for a student who does not receive a lot of emails but struggle to prioritize assignments. Absolutely. So as you can see, let's just imagine here, I'll go back to Party Matrix for a second and I'll show you. Let's just say if you're a student and you're using Party Matrix, well, one of the things you can do is go to here, create a project, and just simply create a project for every single one of your classwork that you have to do. So now you have projects associated with every single one of your classes. And then within that, you can have your priority list. And, maybe these are the things that you want to do to overachieve. These are the things you need to achieve, and then all your other ideas. So that's a very, very simple use of Party Matrix. And what's nice about the matrix system is that it's very visual, and it's a very easy way to see how you have all these things you have to do, and then where you can best spend your time and resources to do them. So I recommend that, as you use Party Matrix, think about the quadrant names to better reflect the way that you think. I think that, for me personally, I have so many things that's going on at any point in time. It's very important for me to get it out of my head. And the best way to get out of my head is to write it down. So you could be doing this on a piece of paper for, and honestly, some people do that. A lot of people do that. The major difference with Party Matrix is that you do it in a digital form, and then we tie it into your Microsoft ecosystem. We tie that into your emails, and then we provide historical records and reports and all of it. Really, that's it. But if it's your things you have to do is simple enough, just apply to your pen and paper, and it'll work just as well. The next question is, do team members see individual priority matrix details or only tasks they are respectively assigned to? That's a great question. So the way it works in Party Matrix is you have a lot of permissions that you can have. So for example, let's just say I go back to my list of projects here. As you can see, when I click on a project and I click on the project details here, I can see now my project details, there's these things called members. If someone is a member within a project, they can see all the tasks within the project and all the details within the project. And that's on purpose. So, it gives you full transparency, and they can go to the feed view here and see the record of all the changes they have within the project, right? And so you get that transparency. Now, if you take a task and you assign it to another person who's not in the project, and you opt to not invite them to the project, then they only see that task and nothing else. But that task will show up in their inbox. So Party Matrix has what's called the inbox, which you go up here and you go click on inbox. So you can think of inbox as access to tasks that don't belong in any specific projects. So this gives you the option to assign people tasks and not show them the rest of the project. Lastly, if you have any project, one of the things you can do is if you go to the top right here, you can choose to share project in read-only mode. So what this does is it can let other people see all the tasks at a high level and all the quadrants they're associated in, but they cannot edit the task nor make changes to the conversations, etc., or the notes, etc. So let me give you a use case. Let's just say if you're inside Microsoft Teams, right? So here I open Microsoft Teams channel, and then you're in upper management and you want to share the goals for your department with the people within this team, but you don't want anyone to edit it, obviously. So what you can do is you can choose a general Teams here, click on this plus, choose Party Matrix. You can choose a project view, select a project, and then choose to share the project in read-only mode. So what this does is it lets you share, your department goals, for example, or other resources or guide within Microsoft Teams and not let others change it. So you can see how you have all those different permission level. Again, if someone is in the project, though, they have absolute full control and full visibility. Next question, when you add files from the desktop, can you access these files from another system? Is it linked to Microsoft accounts? Oh, that's a great question. So you can do both. So what happens is Party Matrix gives you several options. So let's just say if I go back to my Party Matrix here, and within a task, right? Let's say within a task, I have some resources. If I attach a file here, you can access this file anywhere. You can be on another computer, you could be on the web, you could be on a desktop, you could be on mobile, and you can access that task. Or what you can do is instead of actually uploading the file, you can actually add a link to your SharePoint. So Party Matrix has what's called Edge extension and Chrome extension. So if you're browsing a file on SharePoint, you can click on this extension and convert that file into a task. So now when someone opened that link, then they need to log in with a Microsoft account. Thirdly, you can actually use your OneDrive integrations with Party Matrix. So the account admin can actually sync to their OneDrive. And so whenever someone uploads a file, it actually uploads it to the admin's OneDrive, and that's how permissions is handled. So then you're able to go and control access to that particular file. So here, if you're talking about, essentially access to file that you no longer have permissions to, if you're actually uploading the file here in the resources section, then you can still access those files, as opposed to SharePoint, where it is managed by the Microsoft account at any point in time. These are fantastic questions. Thank you. I hope that's clear. If not, feel free to ask for any follow-up, and I'd be happy to look at it. As mentioned, one of the things that we try to do is we try to give you some potential ideas on how to use Party Matrix. I do want to emphasize so much that it boils down to you as an individual. So if you can use Party Matrix to prioritize your task, then everything else will fall into place, right? Because if you're prioritizing your task well, you will succeed, your manager will see that you're succeeding, and then you'll see that your direct reports need to see your priorities and so forth, and then suddenly everything else will come together, and you'll use Party Matrix at your team and then eventually at your organization. So if you struggle with the personal aspect of it, reach out to us, and we'll try to provide you some advice and guidance on how to best leverage that. But again, I emphasize that if you don't use any other features in Party Matrix, simply create a few projects, again, my personal priorities, etc. And then when you create tasks, just set those due dates and reminders. And by the way you get reminders in Party Matrix is here. So there's just something called the home section. And what happens is you get these alerts every single day, right? And so you can actually clear these alerts by going here. And then those recurring reminders, those due dates will keep popping back up here, ensuring that you're reminded of the most critical task. Additionally, there's the chat bot inside Teams that will send you reminders as well. And so our goal in all of this is to be top of mind for you on those critical tasks. And so I hope you take advantage of that. And By the way, I love setting the reminders for tasks that it's a year away even. So I sometimes have to follow with people within a year. I literally would say do in 1 year, right? And then, for example, here again, I'll show you do in 1 year, remind me in 11 months, something like that. And so it's so far out that if you were using a traditional way of prioritizing these tasks, you might lose it. But with Party Matrix, it will come back and it will remind you. And it's even better if you make it recurring, because then you'll get that recurring reminders until you get that task done. Okay. With that, I hope this was a useful introduction. I hope that you'll walk away excited about how you can use this to prioritize your task. We have a lot of other resources online in terms of training videos and so forth. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.